Yes, all right. Welcome everybody. In this session we're going to talk about something I think is very exciting, and at this moment in time it is very exciting because we are actually at the beginning of artificial intelligence and stuff that you've seen in a whole bunch of science fiction movies already. And obviously there is a bit of a battle going on between the big boys like Microsoft, Amazon, Google. They're all into this material, and I thought it is interesting to show you what is currently possible with this stuff, and maybe some of you already encountered a couple of those things. So let me ask you, who is having an Alexa speaker at home? Yeah, so who is having the Google speaker? What we're gonna see is how you can actually use the same kind of technology in your own applications. Because obviously Microsoft doesn't have a speaker. Maybe it will come. Nobody knows. But they do have the technology, and as we are probably all familiar with the stuff from Microsoft, it's like a massive toolbox that you can actually use quite easily in your own software. I'm going to talk about a really cool platform which is already out for some time, but it's getting better like every month or so, which is the Cognitive Services platform. So let's first talk about what does cognitive mean. If you would look that up on Wikipedia or whatever, you will see that cognitive is the mental action or process of acquiring knowledge, understanding through thought, experience as senses. Well, if you would translate that a bit into the stuff that we do, then we'll have senses with Raspberry Pis and all kinds of sensors and stuff. You can measure whatever you want these days for peanuts and process that. Experience, you could actually translate that into machine learning. And is anybody of you doing machine learning in his daily job, or not really a lot? No, well, I don't do it either because it's quite a challenge to set like a whole machine learning model up. But that has everything to do with experience, and I'll talk about that a bit later. And obviously thought, that's a bit of the AI part. So that is actually what cognitive means. And how did I get to this subject? Well, I happen to have two daughters. One is 2.5, the other one is 5. And as soon as the first year with kids, it's just like feeding, changing diapers, stuff like that. And there's not like a lot of interaction yet. But like after a year or so, they start recognizing all kinds of stuff. And I thought this is actually a pretty interesting process because I'm obviously a technical guy. So I was actually thinking like, how does this work? I'm not like any, I didn't study for things that go on in your brains and stuff, but I thought like the whole concept was pretty interesting. So, well, here we have a small picture of my daughters, but the interesting thing is here that at a certain stage, with both of them by the way, if I would show them this picture, they would say it's a dog, or one of them could say it was a dog, the other one did speak until like half a year ago, but she would say woof woof. But if I go and show her something else, she would still recognize this as a dog. And I thought, hey, that's weird, because if I would show her a cat, she wouldn't say it's a dog, though it has 4 legs, it's got a tail, and it's got a couple of ears and stuff. And even this would be considered to be a dog. And I can continue, this would all be dogs to her. And I thought, hey, that's weird, how does that work? So this is a typical example of cognitive development. But if we go back to the men's stuff, any women know? We go back to the men's example. If I would ask any of you, which picture doesn't belong here? Probably everybody is right. Instant. I mean, it will not even cost you a second. It is, we know what it is. Don't tell me. But if I would ask all of you, okay, so now I want you to write an algorithm in software, and I don't care what you use, JavaScript, C#, whatever, write me an algorithm to determine which picture doesn't belong here. That's a bit different, huh? It's going to be slightly more interesting. And this is actually one of the things that we can do with the Cognitive Services API from Microsoft. And I'll show you that a bit later, that it is actually possible to have the software determine which picture doesn't belong here. So, what are the Cognitive Services API? Has any of you done already something with it? Okay, cool, then we have the perfect session coming up here. Okay, so I mentioned it before, the Cognitive Services API is a set of web services basically, so REST endpoints to be a bit more technical, which are based on machine learning and AI. And obviously the AI part is just the beginning, but you'll see that it works pretty good, and you can do some really weird stuff with that as well. If you want, you can do some criminal activities, whatever you want. I mean, it's all possible if you know what's going on here. And the machine learning part is obviously something which is normally quite difficult to set up, but you'll see that Microsoft has done a great job in making that real simple for us. A machine learning model is basically like a huge collection of data, and the more data is in the machine learning model, the better your software can predict certain things. But that is obviously depending on the scenario that you want to use machine learning in. And in this particular scenario, we have a couple of predefined things. So Microsoft has set up those models for us, and we only need to train them, which is collecting data so it can be more accurate. The cognitive services that would say that there are more, and that's absolutely true, are divided in a couple of different services. So for instance, we have the Vision API, and that allows us to do the prediction on the glasses of beer and that cup of coffee that didn't belong there. Oh shit, now I spoiled it. But anyway, the Vision API is able to analyze a picture, a digital picture, and make a number of assumptions on that. One of the other things is the Speech API, which does a couple of things. We have the text to speech, so basically you give that thing some text and it will say it for you, but the other way around is obviously more interesting, and that has partly to do with the language as well. That is actually speech to text. So I tell you something, or I tell my Alexa speaker something, and it does something. That is something which requires a bit more intelligence under the hood, basically, but we'll talk about that as well. Then there is also a Knowledge API, and that is pretty much all data that is collected in universities worldwide, a collection of Bing, everything which is gathered by Microsoft, which doesn't violate GDPR and that kind of stuff, is all available through the search, through the Knowledge API. And that comes together with search, obviously. So, what can we do with this? I'm going to not talk about all of the services because that would cover more than an hour. I will go with the Vision API first. And what can we do with that? It can describe the content of pictures and videos, and I'm going to show you how good that works. And maybe you've seen it a couple of times on some other projects here and there. So actually, before we start, you should be aware that obviously all this stuff, this runs on Azure. So if you want to play around with it, you need an Azure account. You need to set it up, and you need to configure some stuff in Azure. I will skip over that because it's more interesting to show what we can actually do. So I've set up an Azure account already, And I also created a small little test project. Let me see where I put that. That's here. And obviously I collected a couple of pictures which are interesting to mention. So let me quickly run this application. It's available on GitHub, but it's really quite simple. I mean, it's got a file upload control and we'll process it. All right, so I have prepared a number of images which are interesting to discuss. So let me quickly go through there. And that was this one. All right, so here you see a bunch of pictures. Let's first upload this dog and see what happens. So what happens now, this picture is being uploaded to my local web server, and then it's being sent off to the web API or the REST service at Microsoft, and it will analyze it. And let me zoom in a bit because that's more interesting. There are a couple of things which are really interesting because the reason, other way around. Can everybody read it? Yep.
Cropped. Yeah.
Sorry? Yeah, let me, yeah, this is not my best web design, but this is...
The projector is
oh, the projector is, oh, yeah. All right, let me do it slightly different then. Yeah, let me make it a bit bigger then, like this. Okay, so this is cool. All right, so I uploaded the picture, and what I get back is a JSON object with some interesting information here. What you see here is it has analyzed the picture and it has given me a couple of things. So for instance, it's giving me a flag, is adult content. Well, I think he's right about that. Does it have racy content? Well, I do have to say I did check it at home to get that is adult to true, and I can tell you it works, but I'm not doing it here right now, huh? It was a good picture, but all right. So there is a couple of other flags here, but more interesting, I'll scroll down a bit because there is some more interesting information here. For instance, it has put in a couple of tags, and you see that it already knows what's on that picture. And if I go a bit down, it's got the text more, but this is the most interesting thing, obviously, the caption. The description of this image is, it's a large brown dog laying on green grass. And the interesting thing to mention here is that all of these things have a confidence factor. So it is 78% sure in this case, yeah, that it is a large brown dog laying on the green grass. Well, it is correct that it wasn't sure for 100% because it happens to be my dog and it's like this. So it's not really big, but it was laying on the green grass. So it was right about that. And because of this description, you saw that also the tags that it has assigned to this image were pretty okay. But what is interesting to mention, if I scroll up here, you will see that those tags also have a confidence factor. Yeah, so it was pretty sure about the grass. It was also pretty sure about the dog. Outdoor was, maybe it assumed it was outdoor because it had grass. I don't know. Okay, so what you saw, it was obviously not a pit bull. It was also not a bulldog, and it was definitely not a puppy. So you'll see that the scores here are way less. And this is how those cognitive services work. So it works with confidence factors. And yeah, if it's not quite sure, then you will get a lower rate. So if you would need to process a lot of images automatically, maybe, I mean, I'm from the Netherlands and we have like this police Force, and they've got like automated radar installations if you speed too much, and they process that fully automatically. So at the moment you flash, next day you have the speeding ticket at home. That stuff can be processed automatically. They just need to recognize the license plate and off you go with the speeding ticket. Yeah, but you could actually, if you need to process images as well, then you could say like everything below a certain factor needs to be processed manually by somebody looking at it. Or you can train the service to be better in certain details. Yeah, but I mean, this was just a dog picture. It goes a step further than that, because this was just like a basic shape. So if I would go to the adult slide that I had with those glasses with beer, then I could actually upload this one and see what's going on here. And then I'll scroll down. Yeah, it's already done. So it has already said it was a drink. And let's see what was going on here at the description. So it's a glass of orange juice, but as you can see, that was obviously no orange juice, but that is also the resulting of the confidence factor, because it was only 60% sure of the orange juice factor here. But if I would upload the cup of coffee, that is interesting to see here, then let me see, here it is. And I did name it beer, by the way. The file, I thought I'm not going to fool it, because maybe it will look at the file name while uploading. You never know where the cognitive service looks at, so I named it beer as well. And what you see here is that it obviously came back with some other results here. And one of the interesting things is that it is a cup of coffee. So now, with this service, you can imagine that you can upload all those images, all those glasses of beer and a cup of coffee, and because of those results, you could actually make an algorithm to determine which picture didn't belong in the slide, right? And so this is something that can help you with a number of things that would normally be quite a challenging job. But yeah, enough about the objects. There is something else which is interesting to mention, and maybe this is something that you've seen on an app here and there, because people are starting to use this stuff. It can also recognize faces and certain people. So let me first start with this one. Does anybody know who that was? Okay, so her name is Doutzen Kroes. She's a Dutch famous photo model. And if I upload that one, let's see what's happening here. Well, you see at the caption already that it says it is Doutzen Kroes looking at the camera. But now it's getting more interesting, because it also returned a couple of other details here. See, it knows it's female. As far as I know, she is female, but you never know these days. 24 is fine with me, but it's probably accurate. And you get like a face rectangle. So if you want to collect faces from a picture, you can automate that, because you have the dimensions now. Yeah, so this is one of the interesting things as well. And it does not only do that with one face on the picture. Well, you already saw this. Obviously, I collected this one because I just love that movie. So you've probably, most of you have seen The Expendables, with like a whole bunch of superstars back from the 80s. So if I would upload this one, I know this is going to be an interesting result, but did all of you see the movie? Okay, cool. All right, so if we're going to take a look at the results here, what you see then, let me see, yeah. So, first the description. Where is it? Yeah. Okay, so the interesting thing that it did here, Jet Li was on that picture, Jason Statham as well. Stallone was on there as well, but obviously Stallone's character that he plays is Barney Ross. For some reason, I can't get Stallone on this. For some reason, it always returns Barney Ross. But maybe it's a joke. Maybe Stallone said, "I don't want to be recognized by that shit of yours, so keep me out of it." I don't know. Yeah, but it recognizes a whole bunch of faces as well, and now we can actually start doing some interesting stuff here, because again, you'll get like an array with all those guys on there, with the ages with it as well. Well, yeah, because it's Hollywood, you never know if these ages are probably difficult to predict with all the surgical things going on here and there. But I mean, this is so. But this does show you the power of this vision API. And what is obviously also possible is you can also upload a movie to the service as well, and then it will tell you what's on the movie. You can imagine that it will take a couple of snapshots on the back and it will analyze that and do some magic on that, and then you'll get a description on what's on the movie. I won't do it here because it always fails on conferences with Wi-Fi and stuff, but you can test it out yourself by just uploading an MP4 or whatever, and you'll get the same sort of results back. So that is one of the things that I wanted to show you, because it's just, yeah, I find it quite fascinating that this is already possible. So this is the Vision API, and you saw that it will recognize faces on pictures with emotions as well. So you can also get emotions back if the people is smiling or being sad or whatever. Yeah, with that, I would like to have the Vision API for as it is. I mean, you can test it out. I have been playing with this. You don't want to know. I've been uploading a shitload of pictures, and it was really cool. I mean, some results were amazing, and other ones were like, "Hey, you're totally wrong." But they train this daily at Microsoft, and this is one of the things that obviously Amazon does as well. And Google is working on this as well. So the second thing I want to talk about is capture and recognize audio. Let me quickly go a bit further here. So we're gonna talk about something which is called natural language understanding. Has everybody heard of that? You'll probably have an idea how that works. And obviously you can capture audio, send it over to the service, and then you can get it back in a different language as well. So that is, maybe you have done something with Skype. Some versions of Skype can do real audio translation, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But the last one is actually the most interesting one. But this brings us back to the Alexa speaker and the Google Home speaker, which is the use of natural language to give commands. So I can order a pizza and I can say, "I want a pizza," but I can also order a pizza like, "Can I have a pizza?" So it's a different command, but I mean the same. And with natural language, you can ask things in a million ways, but still it means the same. So how are you going to do that? So suppose you want to build your own speaker with some very clever stuff. How can you actually analyze that stuff and do something with it? So the first thing I'd like to show is that the recognize audio thing, and for that, because that's what we're going to need if you want to do something with voice commands. And then the second step will be the natural language understanding. So how does that work? Well, for that I have also set up a small demo here. And again, you can download this. I'll have the GitHub URL on this on my thank you slide, so you can just download it, play around with it. The speech demo. All right, so I didn't tell you that, but also with the Vision API, you need to have an application ID, which you can get from the portal, and you need to have a valid key to process the request. And in this case, I will obviously change this one right after the session. But yeah, you'll need that to have that going. So how does the speech recognition work? Well, that is quite straightforward. If I hit the start button, it will capture my audio while I speak. It will also open a WebSocket to the endpoint at Microsoft, and it will stream the audio right over. And see what's happening here. Welcome at the NDC Conference in Copenhagen. And this is the result. So again, there is this, it basically returns the data that I told. So this is how speech recognition works. And with this, you can take that a step further, which brings us to the natural language understanding, because now we have captured that audio and we got that back into text. And now we can take that a step further, and that brings us to the natural language understanding. And that is actually, yeah, you need to set up something to go on that particular road. So this was just a quick sidestep on the text recognition. If you want to go for natural language understanding, you will need to go, all right. So you will need to go to the language understanding service, and that is called LUIS. And LUIS is part of the cognitive services, but this is actually a tool that allows you to set up your language understanding service to tell it what you want. I mean, it doesn't work like I'll turn this on and I'll talk to that thing whatever I want and it knows what I want. No, we have to tell our natural language understanding service, like, okay, so I have a couple of things that you should be able to do. I want to turn on the light. I want to turn off the light. I want to search Netflix for some movie, to talk in speaker terms. So that thing that I'm building, it doesn't care about what's going on at the neighbor's house. No, it should just be concerned about a number of intents. And that is also how this works. So you have to define a number of intents, which you could actually see as a method that needs to be called in your software. And a method in most scenarios needs a couple of parameters to do certain things. So what you want is, if I capture some audio, I want to know the intent of that particular phrase, and I want to have some parameters out of that. So that is what we can do with LUIS. And once you've signed on LUIS, you can actually set up this model. And how does that work? Well, I've done this a couple of times, so I have a couple of applications already configured there, but I'll start a new one. If that thing goes on. All right, so it doesn't have a lot of energy going there. Let me see it again. So if you would go to luis.ai, then you can sign up with your Azure account and you'll have a list with apps. Well, as you can see, I've done this a couple of times, but let me create a new app, particularly for NDC Copenhagen, and I will call it Travel NDC Copenhagen. Okay. Yeah, it's just a name. But anyway, okay, one important aspect is, and this is a question that I get a lot, and I am not in a position to answer that, when is the support for this language or that language, or even in Dutch, there is a limited support, but I hope that they will get that going pretty fast. In this particular scenario, this is the list with languages that they support, and yeah, unfortunately Danish is not in the list, but you'll never know. So let's just keep it on English. And once the app has been created, we need to tell the intent. So what do we want to do? Turn the lights on, turn the lights off, or do something else. In this case, we're going to do a small travel thingy, and let's create a new intent. And this could actually be seen as the method that needs to be executed once the understanding service understood that you want to, in this case, book a flight. This is just the name, and what we now need to do is we need to type, it also says it in the box, type about 5 examples of what a user might ask before it determines that you want to book a flight. So I could say, book me a flight from Copenhagen to London, and this would be it. And then obviously a result question might be, okay, but when do you want to fly and with how many people, etc., etc. But let's keep it simple for this. Book me a flight from Copenhagen to London. Maybe I say search flight from Amsterdam to Madrid next week. That would be making a bit of sense here. So another example, and you can imagine I will do one other. Find a ticket from Madrid to Rome tomorrow. Well, it says give 5 examples. I'll keep it to 3. And the idea is obviously because what we're doing now is we're setting up the machine learning model. And as I mentioned before, the more data is in there, the more it understands. So you will see in a couple of minutes, once we're going to test this, that it is not entirely accurate because I only given it 3 examples. But you can imagine if you have like 3,000 examples, it knows exactly what you want. So this has everything to do with machine learning. But now I have only told him, okay, I want to book a flight, and the search phrase might look like this, but now we need to get some parameters out of these texts, because where do you want to fly from, and where do you want to go to, and maybe which date, stuff like that. So we can actually mark that in this list. So if I would say Madrid, I can now create an entity for Madrid, and I will call that departure. See this as a method parameter. What you'll see is that there are a number of variable types, or how you want to call that, but in this case it's going to be a simple one, and I'll hit done. And I am going to flag this one as destination, like this. It's going to be a simple one as well. I'll go do the rest here as this was the departure. This is going to be the destination. And although this one is going to be the departure and the other one is the destination. There is only one important aspect here that I didn't do, and for that I will need like another type of entity, because these were just simple entities, but for tomorrow and next week I would actually like to have a date. That makes more sense. So I have to go to the entities list here. And what you see is that the entities that are defined are already there, but now I can create a pre-built entity. And this is something which is quite cool, because this has been defined by Microsoft already, and there is a whole bunch of predefined entities in there. So this is already pre-trained pretty much. And one of the things, well, you see is like an email address or a phone number, in this case a US phone number, which is obviously kind of sucky because we're not there. But the thing that does work pretty good is the date time one. So if I would add this one to my entities, And I go back to my intents. And I go back to the labels. Now I can say that well, you saw it already. It has updated it already. So tomorrow is being transformed into a date time, and next week has also been assigned to the date time. So that means that I can now actually say, book me a flight on April the 4th, and then it will understand it as well. But it will do tomorrow, and it will do next week, or next month, or whatever. So that is with the predefined types, and there's a whole bunch of them. You can check that out. And this makes it quite powerful. So, okay, so I've set up my book flight. Let me do another one as well to make sure that we have something interesting here. Maybe I want to know what the weather is at the destination while I fly there. So I could do get temperature. So I'm going to create another intent, and I'm going to give it like only one sentence. What is the temperature in London? All right, so I'm going to say this is my destination. So I can reuse those entities on the different intents, and you can create like a whole bunch of collections with intents. So this is how you fine-tune your model, or tell your model what you want, basically. So once we have set this up, the model needs to be trained, and that's quite easy because we can just say train. And well, as I said, I'm not really like a machine learning guru or whatever, but I can imagine that something is being indexed right now under the hood, and all kinds of really complicated things are being optimized right now. That's the training process, I guess. And once that is done, I can test this out. And in this case, it's a bit small. Can you read it in the back as well? Everybody can read it? Yeah? Okay, cool. Okay, so now I can actually test my natural language understanding by typing in some text here. So I could now say, find a flight from Amsterdam to Copenhagen tomorrow. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to inspect this, and this is obviously quite tricky because this is not the thing that I wanted to show, but we'll show that in another thing a bit later. What you see here is a couple of interesting things. So my query was find a flight from Amsterdam to Copenhagen tomorrow. It found out that the intent that I probably want to do is to book flight, and it was 69% sure of that. Again, a confidence factor. But then it also found a departure and a destination, Amsterdam and Copenhagen, and tomorrow, and it has recognized that as a date time. And so it has already understood what I wanted to do, and we'll see a bit later how this is going to be returned into JSON as well, so we can actually do something useful with that. So this was one of the things. So let's check the other one. I can say how is the temperature in London? Oh, made a typo here. How is the temperature in London? All right, so if we're inspecting that, it will also see that it is 48% sure that you want to do the get temperature method, and the destination, so the parameter that I want is London. So now I know all this, I can actually do some query on AccuWeather or whatever to get the temperature of London, and return that to my end user, basically. And you can imagine that the more I train this, like I can think a million ways on how to book a flight or get weather or whatever, but the more you train this, the more it understands and the more accurate it will be. And so this is actually what brings us to the natural language understanding service. And yeah, once we have set this up and it looks pretty okay to us, we can actually go to the next step here. Because this is still all internal, but now we can actually publish this, and that means that it will get an endpoint, a public-facing endpoint, that we can call to get our commands, basically. So the publishing has been completed. So if I would now go to the Manage tab here, we'll have a couple of things which are quite interesting, and this is something that I will need in my application as well. So the authoring key is something that I need. Let me see, the application ID is also something I need. So let me copy that over to my speech recognition demo. That was here. Because you can imagine, now I showed you how to get text from something that I tell the computer. We can actually chain up those requests and do something without using our keyboard. That was the title of my presentation. So I thought that would be a nice way of ending this session as well. So the app ID needs to be in here. I hope the URL is okay here. And what I do now is, I might need the authoring key as well. And I need to check, how does this go away here? Yeah. West US, yeah, this should be okay. All right, so let me also copy this key because I probably need that here. So this is obviously not the most fancy way of doing this, but let's see what happens when I restart my demo and tell the computer something. All right. So, book me a flight from Copenhagen to Madrid next week. All right, so it has now recognized the text that I've been telling it, and it has also sent it over through my model that I've just been setting up to process this natural command. So if I scroll down a bit, what you'll see is a very interesting thing here. I send over the query to my natural language understanding service, and what you see is that I get JSON back as well. And what we see is that the top scoring intent is book a flight. Yeah, so it is 99% sure that I want to do the book flight thing. There were some more intents, like the none one, it's there for some reason always. And the get temperature, but it was only, well, it was pretty sure it wasn't temperature because it is like not even 1%. Yeah, so it was quite sure it wasn't get temperature. But what is more interesting now is, so we know we have to execute the book flight. And if I scroll down, there is like a very interesting thing going on here. So my next week phrase, that was of the type date time version 2. And what you actually see is that it has created a time structure for us. And this is something what we can use in our software. Next week doesn't say anything to us, but it has actually given the range next week. That is indeed from April the 1st till April the 8th. that is the entire next week. So it is completely right about that. So that's, I'd say that is a pretty clever thing. And this is actually what the Alexa speaker and the Google Home speaker are using as well, these kind of constructs. And if I scroll a bit down, because we were missing something, it was again, the departure was that right? Yeah. So the departure was Copenhagen, and it has actually marked it that the type was the departure. That was the intent that I gave. And it is 89% sure that that is correct. So you could actually assume that it is correct. And again, the destination is Madrid. So I guess with this response, we can actually process such a natural language command. And I can test another one. Let me figure out another way of asking something to that thing. So if I would say, what's the temperature in Seattle? All right. So let's see what it did. It's pretty sure. Well, it's only 40% sure that it is the get temperature one. That is obviously because I trained it only with one thing, so it's actually pretty good that it did discover it. And it was 21% sure of the book flight. And this is obviously one of the things which makes this a success, or when your software fails. If you don't train it enough, you're going to be disappointing people. Because if it doesn't understand what you want, it doesn't work. So you have to make sure that you train it. But fortunately, all the queries that have been sent to the service will be stored, and it will be used. And in the diagnostics portal of Lewis, you can actually correct the model. Like, okay, this was a get temperature, or this was book a flight. So you can correct that and to make your predictions better. But again, yeah, it was quite sure about the temperature, because it has the highest score. And also the destination, it found that it has been Seattle. So with this, you could actually have a nice start on booking a flight and get a temperature while you go. So if I would now switch back to the Lewis portal, that's the last thing I'm going to show you on this. We have actually some application information here. Now we need to go to the dashboard, I'm sorry. What you get here is a nice overview what has been done on your endpoint. And you can actually drill down. So there is also the possibility, but they recently changed that. That's quite annoying. There is this possibility to collect everything that has been queried, and you can actually, okay, so I'm unable to find it right now. That's a bit of a shame. Did I put it on a test? No, the batch testing panel. No. Okay, so there is this possibility somewhere where you can actually see what has been queried, and you can actually use that input to add it to the intense examples that I did in the beginning, and then you can mark those entities yourself to make like the predictions better. So a very powerful, again, a very powerful feature that you can incorporate in existing applications if you want to. But as I mentioned, you have to be careful about training the model properly. So you, especially at the beginning, you need to see what's going on, what has been asked, correct it, and train the model again, etc., to make it better. So that will take a bit of time in the beginning, but in the end you can have like a very nice experience for your end users. Obviously, this is also one of the things that is used in the Skype bots that are popping up every now and then. They use this same Lewis application to do natural language, because with Skype you can ask it also in a million ways. So This is one of the things that is used over there as well, and you can imagine that I mentioned it in the abstract. Things like Cortana and things like Siri as well. I mean, they use a collection of those services to make your life better, or at least that's what they want you to believe. And yeah, let me quickly sync up because we have done this. Well, I've done the demo with Visual Studio. You need to have an account. I mentioned all of that. And I promised you to have this GitHub link here so you can download the example and play around with it. You'll see the only thing which is a bit of JavaScript is the speech, sending over my voice to the endpoint. That includes a bit of JavaScript, but for the rest it's really quite straightforward. But yeah, with this I hope I've given you a nice introduction on what's possible these days with this kind of stuff, and I hope you can use this in your day job to make your work a bit easier. And thank you for your attention. If you